Well, it's a rainy, gray, and cold morning here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, coming in at 25 degrees Celsius. But not to worry, your daily dose of sunshine is here. Good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Mokwa Ogun Yusuf.
Seems I predicted this, right, Mokwa, that now it seems the daily dose is being rationed by the weather. Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome to the program. It's 29 degrees here in Lagos.
I can tell you the weather has nothing on us and nothing on the sites we're about to take you to all the way in Niger State. Well, some people will say it's Kwara, it's Niger. Well, you make up your mind. We know it's in north-central Nigeria, and it's the old Jeba rail bridge we're bringing into focus this morning. We understand that bridge took about 5 years to complete, just around the amalgamation of Nigeria. So yes, this bridge was being built around 1914, and we understand was completed around 1916. It took about 5 years to build, so it must have started before the amalgamation of Nigeria. Do you know how old that is? This bridge is, we're talking about 100 years old. Yeah, this bridge is about 100 years old, and it's still standing strong. It's unclear if it's still in use. We know that they're trying to revive the rail project, but I do not know if this bridge will still be usable. I think the engineers will help us check on it. But this is what we're bringing into focus this morning. This bridge straddling the River Niger, connecting northern and southern Nigeria, the very first bridge ever to do so. It's in focus this morning because we'll also like to focus on this river, especially in Niger State. And we know what has been happening in Niger State in recent times. Not the most pleasant of scenarios there, with people drowning in floodwaters. But this bridge, a solid piece of infrastructure, lasting through the times, constructed for £5 million at the time, an enormous amount of money, we understand. I imagine it's made far much more than that. But I wonder what it will have to do to bring it back into focus and to revive the connection, the rail connection between northern and southern Nigeria. Ayo.
Well, you know, as you were speaking, Mokwa, I can't get past the beauty. Again, I cite the instance of back in the day. I don't know, there is the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas. I don't know even if the millennials can relate with the postcards, Mokwa. Back in time where you just took a picture and on the reverse side you put a message and you send it through the mail, attach a stamp to it. Those days, oh my gosh, those days are since gone. But that is the kind of feeling I get just looking at this lovely picture in our faces. But unfortunately, Mokwa, rather, should I say incidentally, as you would also always remind us from time to time, this Jeba bridge that you've spoken about is, of course, as you can see, we've also attached to River Niger to it. And River Niger happens to be one of those areas that one would wonder exactly why would we have the kind of challenge that we have, particularly in the area of flooding in that state of recent. Because you know the Mokwa flooding, for instance, there are those who are alleging that the flooding was caused by a bigger problem upstream. Some are even alleging a dam bust, you know, as they have already told some people in international space. Don't forget that Niger State has Kainji Dam, has Jeba Dam, has Shiroro Dam, and we understand the fourth one is still under construction. So one of the things that we've heard over time, as far back as one can remember, a good number of flood risk analysts have told us that the amount of rain you expect in a year could sometimes come in 1 or 2 months, and people are not prepared for that kind of rainfall. With the warnings that we always get, shouldn't government itself be prepared? But, you know, please, can we just for a second enjoy the beauty of what we are seeing in our faces right now, Mokwa? Well, straight away from that conversation around Jeba Bridge and the beauty of it is the unfortunate incidents that we are still trying to get a grip on in Niger State, Mokwa to be precise. Here is the background to what happened so far.
These makeshift camps serves as a temporary accommodation for victims of the Mokwa flood disaster. Visibly frustrated, the residents here are not pleased with the living conditions and the handling of relief efforts.
Where they not give us anything. Everything is passed for our house. They not give us only bread. Now one bread and one cowbell.
We are in pain. You can see how people are suffering, and we are mixed with Nupe and outside people. Please, we need government intervention.
Beyond food shortages, the camps have been scrutinized by community volunteers who described it as unsuitable for human habitation.
The government chairman created a temporary camp which the victim, they feel that it's not conducive for them. So any of them turn up because there's no toilet, there's no source of water. The only thing I'm seeing they are bringing is bread and soft drink.
Help us too, because the drugs we are having is not much. Government should please assist us with some drugs, because most of the drugs is not available, and the small one we have, we are lacking.
In reaction to the complaints, the acting Director General of the Niger State Emergency Management Agency, Hussaini Ibrahim, says the agency is working to address the challenges.
Earlier today, the food items from NEMA were given to them, including the one from the other agencies. And then by this evening, the one from the state government, because the state government is a package. Rice has already gotten to them. We have indomie, beans, mattresses, sanitary materials, including sleeping materials, and also red oil and groundnut, because we have the assessment of what, because you need to get the total number of who are supposed to be in the camp, and then you multiply them and see what is going to be the ration that is a number of a bag will be able to provide. Pege Primary School, that was a mark for them to come and stay, to go and stay. And the first day, some of them that were not able to go to their neighbors came to that place. The next day, most of them move out of that place.
Meanwhile, in a statement, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has confirmed the death toll from the flood has risen to 159. According to the latest figures, a total of 3,018 persons were affected, comprising 503 households. The number of those injured stands at 11, while 3 bridges have been damaged in the disaster. However, in Indayako, another community impacted by the flood, there are no reported deaths yet, although 98 people were affected, with 58 houses damaged and 17 households impacted. Also in Raba community, NEMA states that no death has been recorded. However, 5 houses and the bridge linking the community were also damaged. The agency states it will continue to monitor the situation closely while coordinating relief efforts with relevant agencies to assist affected communities. Victoria Longjohn, Channels Television News.
Thank you so much for staying with us. So that's a background to our conversation this morning. Sometime in September last year, there was a report that was released by the meteorological agency, or is it the hydrological agency in Nigeria? And essentially they were saying that governments, state governments in particular, are responsible for the lives of the people that are lost to flooding and the properties that are destroyed, or whatever it is that the aftermath. Okay, it's the Nigeria Hydrological Agency that released that report. And they have continued to opine that they have sensitized governors in particular to relocate their people to maybe camps or something, so that, you know, lives are not lost and property are not destroyed. Perhaps by way of reiteration, sometime earlier this year, I think about April this year, the federal government also put out a statement. The same Hydrological Services Agency says 1,249 communities in Nigeria are going to be affected in 30 states and the Federal Capital Territory at high risk of flooding. And guess what? Lagos was listed as one of those states. That statement was put out during the unveiling of the 2025 annual flood look by the minister. Well, we have the Commissioner for the Environment here in our studio in Lagos, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, to give us an idea of how far so far on his side. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ayo. Thank you.
First of all, I'm sure you saw that report as well, when the Hydrological Agency put it out, that Lagos was going to be a high-risk flooding area. How did it come to you? It was just about 2 months ago.
Ayo, let's put it in context. Lagos is a coastal state. Lagos is the most populous city in Africa, over 22 million people. But Lagos size about 3,577 square kilometers of land. A third of it is water. A third of it is water and is abutted to the south by the Atlantic. So that alone gives you a picture. Now, the next argument is climate change real? I'll tell you yes, because Lagos is also exposed to climate risk in the sense that there will be sea level rise. There will be excessive rainfall, and then there will be excessive heat. These are things that are scientifically proven. So what have we done differently? That's the next thing we are going to talk about. Between September 23rd, 2023, when I assumed office, we asked an arm of our agency, that's EFAG, the Emergency Flood Abatement Gang, to work 24/7, 365 days of the year. That means they don't have to go off. And they've been able to accomplish the maintaining and cleaning of about 666,000 kilometers of collectors. That's about 397 secondary collectors statewide. Maintain them, desilt them, and cut them away all year round. But importantly also, we also had to take very tough, hard decisions. One of those trying to reestablish the right of way for our systems and those that are built on the floodplain. We have about 12 systems that we've done so far, about 32 kilometers, of trying to restore the original right of way for nature, including Systems 1 here at Maryland, Oduyalaro. And that sparked a lot of reaction from people that were being political. They are looking at the citizens, because we know for a fact that Oduyalaro Systems 1 discharges the whole of the mainland into the Lagos Lagoon. Ikeja, Ogba, Mende, Aro-Jobe, true, and it was gazetted in 1974 to preserve it. And you now find a developer come up and build on that right of way. We have to make very tough, hard choices. Because before then, my predecessor in office, Mr. Tunji Bello, had served the notices. What I had to do was now bring the political will to say, we must do the right thing, else citizens' lives will be at stake. And we did. We restored that right of way, and like we did for others. And we've done that statewide. We've done around the conservation part of Lekki, where we have system 156, 157. Those systems were so critical to that axis because it discharges into the Kota River. And some individuals believe they are above the laws of the land without approvals, chose to obliterate system 156, covered it up, built houses on it. And we said, no, these are tough choices we have to make. Oh, or is it the one at Ikota, where we had to remove about 44 or 45 houses, including, painfully, that of a serving local government chairman of our party in the state. He built on System 44A, the alignment, and we have to restore and now put in place resilient infrastructure. Now, in all this, we know we face existential challenges. A state that is below sea level. And you know if you don't prepare for this, the flood will come. Even at that, we will still experience some flash floodings. Not because we've not prepared, but because when the tidal level is up due to excessive rain, there will be a lockup. Lockup means the storm water will not be able to discharge into the lagoon or the Atlantic because of the tidal level. And that usually takes between an hour or two, and then it will recede, nature will take its course. You don't call that flooding. So in all this, what we've done is we've prepared for it. And we keep preparing for it. We also tell our Lagosians that are on that low-level floodplain of Agility, Isheri North, Ajegunle, and some part of Agboiketu. We've been saying this since January. You have to vacate. Vacate to a higher place. You don't have to attach so much importance to these material things. But
we've also seen videos, and I'm sure you've seen some of them as well, in parts of Lekki, where people say they sleep in their homes and wake up in the morning, and there's flood in the living room, in the bedroom, and all of that.
Can I answer you?
Yes, please.
Lekki is a low line. Lekki is a low line. And what we've done in Lekki, I mentioned the quota. I mentioned 6156, 6157, Orchid Road, around that side too. Even around the Ogombo axis, we are putting in place infrastructure. I'll give you an example. There is a major road around the Chevron part of Lekki. People built and they overbuilt. We have to take action to remove those contraventions and then put in place a very huge secondary collector, a trapezoidal. Why did we do that? Because we know that's the only way we can discharge into the lagoon. Now, if it rains excessively and there's a lockup, I mentioned the word lockup. Yes. The storm water will not discharge. And I said for about 1-2 hours, it will recede. That is a global phenomenon for a coastal state. Now, you can't experience that on the upper part of Lagos, that's on the mainland, because they are not on that side of Lagos. So you experience those things once in a while. And I will still say to Lagosians, let us know the difference between a flash flood, which will occur when the rain is excessive, and then proper flooding.
Okay. Now, there has been proper flooding in Mokwa, for instance. And so all of these examples and analysis and explanations that you've given, one wonders what your take is. Well, of course, you don't have any authority in that area, but from your assessment and from your understanding, what do you think could have been done? Because, as I said, and the reports go, we knew this was going to happen since September last year.
Okay. Let me start by saying I want to send my condolences to the people of Niger State. My brother, my colleague, the Commissioner for Environment in Niger State. What happened is quite unfortunate. But you see, people also need to take responsibility. It's beyond government here. I'm not going to apportion blame. The optics is very bad. What had happened is very heart-wrenching for any one of us. One citizen is enough. Talk less of like 159 or 160. But it's about, let us take ownership of our environment. If the government says, don't build on a floodplain, it may hurt you in the interim. But in the long run, it speaks to the fact that science has shown floodplains are called floodplains for a reason. The flood will take through those areas. We've had those things also in some parts of Lagos, where we tell people, you can't build here. And because of the coordination in Lagos, if you put an approval in the Ministry of Physical Planning, they will tell you, go to the Ministry of Environment, go get a drainage clearance, go bring your environmental impact assessment to show that you can put this here. When you tie that with your floodplain argument, drainage clearance will not be granted to you, you can't build. And what we found out, most of those houses we had to remove, they don't have approvals. So for Mokwa, it's painful. It's painful because lives had been lost. So many lives. We just have to keep appealing to citizens. Please. Floodplains, wetlands are not places we can afford to live on. We can't. Climate change issues are real-life issues. Lagos will experience heavy rainfall. We are preparing for it. Those states have also prepared for it. But the citizens must also take ownership of it. They must not see it as a form of punishment. That why are they removing these contraventions? You know what I had to go through for the past 12 months initially when I assumed office. People had to politicize those actions. I was dog-whistled, I was called a bigot, but today, the results have shown that we took the very hard way to solve what will have become a disaster for our dear state Lagos.
But you know, one of the things that governments all over the country have had, the challenges that governments all over the country have had, is that of depleted trust quotient. People don't trust government. There have been cases, even in Lagos, in time past, I don't know if it still exists, where, you know, government, of course, gets the land, and rather than use it for whatever intended purpose, they are giving out to some other people or assigned for some other reasons. Now, if that had happened, you know, in Niger State, for instance, you wouldn't blame people for being a little iffy about what the intention of government would be when they tell them to move.
You see, I wouldn't be able to speak to what I don't have the facts. And I won't speak to those facts as per Niger. But in Lagos, when we say to you, we have to remove these contraventions because we have to put in place the resilient infrastructure that nature demands of us. Maybe it should be a tripod so that there will be this huge to take your storm water. Once we start removing, you can go find out. We put those infrastructures in place. Is it the one that Ayobo, that Tikrit is doing? We ensure that we put all those things in place. And the citizens, we always tell them, if we fail to do that, call us out. That is how to be a responsive citizen. If we fail to do what we had promised, call us out. On what basis will I remove a property on a floodplain? And then I will now go assign it to somebody else to go and build on it. Isn't that a recipe for madness? Pardon my language.
You know, so if you would make recommendations, we're still talking about flooding, and I'm sure that my colleague Mokwa will want to ask you questions along that line before we go to other issues. So if we would if you could counsel your colleagues in other states, according to the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, 30 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, are at high risk of flooding. Now, the circumstance in Lagos is different from the circumstance in other states. What would be your recommendation to them? What would be your advice so that we don't have the kind of casualties we already recorded here now?
It's to have the political will to take very tough decisions for the overriding public interest. The Ministry of Environment is all over the country. It's a public-facing one. And a lot of other elements are tied to it, beyond climate change, beyond flooding. So you must be able to decide. It's going to be very tough because the tough decisions may be misinterpreted at the initial stage. But your messaging must be clear. You must be consistent. Like we mentioned, we have floodplains in Lagos. I know where those floodplains are. So I will tell you, if you're at Agility or Ajigme, I'll tell you, no. You can't be here from this period. And the moment we receive this information from NIMET, we disseminate. We have our press conferences and we start the advocacy. So what I can advise colleagues, states, countrywide is, be ready to take very tough decisions. They may not be popular. They are not meant to be popularity contests, but do them well, and let the overriding public interest and the results speak for you.
Okay. My colleague Mokwa has questions for you as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mokwa.
Thank you, Ayo, and it's good to see you, Mr. Wahab. I want to take you up on the issue of transparency in handling land matters. I mean, when you see the built-up properties that had to be destroyed is really very heart-rending, especially for those who have invested their hard-earned funds. For some people, maybe those were monies planned for retirement, etc., etc. And you know how essential housing is. So some people will ask, has Lagos invested in transparency, especially when it has to do with land matters? So people know very clearly areas that have been, demarcated or, set aside as flood areas or floodplains or drainage areas, places where people ought not to build at all. And it is clear to all that this is how you can find out.
Okay, thank you very much, Maupe, and good morning. It's been a while. Maupe, let me start by saying, in Lagos, I can say we've invested heavily in that transparent infrastructure from where you can find out how and where to build. And that's our EGIS platform. It's in Alausa here. You can go there, you find out, go with your survey, for instance. Or even if you are in doubt, go to the appropriate ministry. Leave the Ministry of Lands where you have the title vested. Go to the other ministries and find out, oh, I have a property I want to buy around Lekki. Does he have a drainage issue? Do I have to get a drainage clearance permit? EGIS will tell you, yes, you can't build here. Oh, there's a primary collector running through this area. Whatever you want to do, you must have 6 meters away from that collector. These are things that you can verify in Lagos. But the other leg of what you observed, removing those contraventions. Nobody wants to do those tough things. Nobody. It's heart-wrenching also when you imagine the colossal damage the flood will have done to the majority of the citizens. I'll take you back to Mende, Maryland and Lagos. In 2020, 2021, and 2022, the flood, the destruction, and the loss of life were fully recorded. And my predecessor in office, Mr. Tunji Bello, had to tell them to leave that area because it's on the right of way for Odoyalaro Systems 1. But they were reluctant, they were buying time until September 2023, and I said, no, this notice we have to enforce. And we did enforce it. It was painful because people had invested. But when they were investing also, they had the recourse to say to whoever they are buying from, if you give me a defective title, I will take you to court. Selling them a property that is on the floodplain is a defective title. So they can do that on the one hand. But these decisions, by and large, are usually based on the overriding public interest. Overriding because we look at the bigger picture. How many citizens' lives will be lost if we leave just 3, 4, 5, 6 properties on that alignment? So we have to make and weigh it, and we choose to go with the overriding public interest.
I understand that, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians can understand that. What they'll find difficult to understand is how come those properties were allowed to be built in the first instance. That what Nigerian will know that that sort of, that property that he or she was about to invest in was sitting on the floodplain and would go ahead foolishly to do such a thing.
People in this part of the world, with due respect to most of them, believe there are no consequences for bad behavior. And that is the reset button we have chosen to press in Lagos. There must be consequences for bad behavior, or else the state becomes an Obesian state, where life becomes nasty, brutish, and short. And we can't afford that. I'll give you an example. There's a story of New York before Rudy Giuliani, if you go and find out. New York had almost become a failed state. Waste management, lawlessness, and all sorts. And Rudy Giuliani won the elections years back, and he said, we have to press the reset button. We are enforcing law and order. And in 6 months, New York changed the trajectory. Until date, New York had been on that upward swing of that trajectory. Now, what we found out in Lagos, and I won't mention names, but those developers know themselves. They fly coordinate, Maupe. Flying coordinate means they will have a survey for a land that is here, and they will go market and sell it to people on another area, the same land. And they've done it for years. They don't have approvals most times. They'll have approval for 1 or 2 units. They'll go and build 20 units. 2, they also believe they can do it and they can get away with it. And for me, I believe we must put their legs to fire. We must attach consequences to bad behavior. Whoever hawks is God. We don't have to look at that. It's painful at times when you remove those contraventions. But I always insist, whatever is good for the goose, is good for the gander.
Is the state government, I know that... Is the state government now going to prosecute them? Because I heard you mention prosecution, but it seems you're leaving it to the individuals affected. I mean, if they are clearly found to have contravened state guidelines in terms of development, shouldn't the state prosecute them?
But there are 2 legs to it. There's what is called the privity of contracts between whoever buys title from them, a property from them, and the company that they bought from. Those are developers. For those, they can take them to court and seek their remedies. However, for those that also connived, I'm using my words advisedly here, for those that connived to game the system, within the civil service, most of them always face the personnel management system to sanction them. And if it goes beyond that, they can hand them over to the law enforcement agencies to prosecute. That's what the state has been doing for the past few years. But because civil servants are involved most times, we don't seem to publicize it because the civil service structure has a very, very well-regulated system to prosecute those that are doing the wrong things. And they usually send them packing.
Well, I understand we have to take a break now. When we come back, we'll focus a little more on how we can prevent. I mean, you've spoken a little about it. But then there are those who ask if Lagos can withstand a Mokwa-style flood. That will be when we'll come back from this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We still have with us in our studios in Lagos the Commissioner for Environment, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab. And we're talking about what happened in Niger State, in Mokwa, Niger State, where a community, Mokwa community, has lost over 150 people. At the last count, 159 people owing to floodwaters, rain flood that happened on the 28th to 29th of May. We're asking questions as to the preparedness of Lagos. Well, Honorable Commissioner, I'm sure you must have listened to what happened in Mokwa. And, you know, even though, yes, NEMA has been issuing warnings such as the one we've just seen in our commercial break, it does appear that sometimes it is unprecedented, the manner in which this rainfall happens. We've been told that owing to climate change, rain that ought to fall maybe within a period of 2 to 3 days can fall all at once in 6 hours. And this particular community was taken, it was seen by surprise, as the rain started in the middle of the night and fell through till the morning. A dam, as a result of that, broke. 2 bridges collapsed, and the amount of floodwaters surging through the community was such that it was unprecedented. So, you know, people were caught off guard and lost their lives in the process. As we're speaking, NEMA says, you know, some people have still not been accounted for. I'm just wondering, I mean, there's only so much that you can do. You're trying to clear drains, you're doing all that you can do right now. But do you think that should that sort of rainfall which occurred in Mokwa happen in Lagos, do you think that Lagos is prepared for it?
Thank you, Mokwa. Lagos is prepared for the worst, and we hope for the best. And we've been doing this for the past few years. We've been ramping up the resilient infrastructure to take care of our stormwater, knowing the peculiarities of Lagos, a state that is small but abutted by the Atlantic, the lagoons, and the creeks. So what we've also chosen to do differently since last year was, after taking stock, was to show the political will and ban styrophones. When we ban styrophone, there were lots of hues and cries. But in the past 12 months, we've seen the positive impact of the ban on styrofoam, because styrofoam, being non-biodegradable elements, clogged the drainage infrastructure of the state. And once it clogs, the water would find its level, and then there will be flooding across some areas of the state. So when we banned, we enforced the ban. And we now moved beyond that. We also say to one another, we must ensure we keep the maintenance of our systems going every day, all year round. And then we pushed out the advocacy. And we said to one another, with all this we've put in place, are we going to have flooding? Oh, yes, because climate-related issues are real. And I said at the beginning of the program, Lagos, being a coastal state, is exposed to climate risk with respect to heavy rainfall, excessive heat, and then sea level rise. These three elements, we can't run away from them. So all we have to do as a state is keep preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, and thankfully, the infrastructures we're putting in place are taking the shocks on our behalf. We've done over 32 kilometers of collectors, primary and secondary, in the first 12 months. This year alone, we're doing about 36 kilometers of primary and secondary collectors, just to keep ramping up the infrastructure. And then, most importantly, Maope, we need to enforce our laws. Enforce laws to prosecute people who choose to also clog the stormwater ways. People that, for one or two reasons, choose to be incorrigible, pardon my language, and take their waste, dump them in the drainage. Or take their waste, choose to dump them on the median of the road. Or take their waste and choose to drop them on the express road. All these things usually finds their way back to the drainage system. And in the past 1.5 years, we've prosecuted successfully 3,796. Prosecuted successfully. And we are sending a very strong message that Lagos will not tolerate bad behavior. We're sending a message that if we have an environmental law that sets what is acceptable in the state, it behoves us as a state and as a people to uphold it and enforce it. Because without enforcing, we create a recipe for disaster. And nobody knows the way nature will take its course. We've seen very developed, very, very developed countries in the West, Germany, Sweden, England, and name them, even the US, experience flooding that they've never experienced before. Even Dubai, the city in the desert, experienced huge flooding some months back. They never experienced it before. Now it tells you that some persons may choose to play the ostrich. Climate change issues are real. So as a state, our infrastructures, we keep ramping up. Secondary, primary collectors, we keep dredging our waterways to allow them to take more storm water. We keep also preserving our wetlands. Now, have we experienced some encroachments here and there? Yes, but we are reversing those negative trends. Painfully, people will say, we are removing houses. We have to, because, for instance, wetlands are like the natural sponge for nature. They take your storm water, they hold them when the rain is excessive, and they choose to release them accordingly when the rain subsides. We need to preserve those areas. Our mangroves on the Ekpe, Ikorodu, Agbowa corridor, we have to preserve them. And importantly, ramp up our advocacy for our people.
It's a good thing you just mentioned advocacy, and I'll take you quickly up on that before I bring up the Dubai issue, which you also mentioned. Enlightenment, I know that I have seen you go to markets, I've seen you physically, I mean, our cameras have covered your trips to market trying to educate the people. However, we know that, you know, those trips might not be sufficient. And of course, the communities that you need to reach, particularly vulnerable communities that you need to reach, you know, are quite expansive. So I have to ask, you know, how aggressive has the Lagos State government been in trying to get the message across to those who might be directly affected but maybe do not exactly speak the languages that the official languages, or let's say the language of officialdom that is normally spoken in quarters such as this. How are we getting them to understand what is currently happening with the climate and also adjusting their practices to the same?
The truth be told, can advocacy be enough? I'll tell you no. But you also need to keep couching the messaging. And you couch those messages in the language they understand. English, Pidgin, Yoruba, Hausa, Ibibio, name it. Lagos is cosmopolitan. Lagos is a melting pot for the country. So we keep doing this. And importantly also, whilst we're messaging and doing the advocacy, we also ensure we tell them there will be consequences. I have been to market myself, and I'll keep going there. And because market is where you find virtually everybody. Will some persons still take it for granted? Oh, yes. And that's why the consequences of the stick comes in with the carrot. Let me give an example. Some days back, even with the best of advocacy, we found a man who chooses to take his waste from his home, like most of those guys do. And then they're going to court and they're sending them to prison. Took his waste to the top of Alakpere Bridge and joyfully took the waste, opened the boot, was dropping it. And he was captured because we're doing the whistleblower policy. We captured the plate number and we tracked him to his house. And we took him to court. Not just him, several people like that. Or are we talking about those persons that if you're going from Ogun State, from your station here to Lagos, after the Ogun State border, we put signposts that you can't defecate on this median. We took ownership of it. And we prosecuted people over time. Oshodi, we're doing the same thing. Lagos Island, we're doing the same thing. And we're doing these things because as we are ramping up advocacy, we're also ensuring that we are attaching consequences to those bad behaviors. Or else, everybody would think, oh, they will just talk, and then nothing will happen. And that's not something you want to encourage as a government. So yes, it's tough. Advocacy can't be enough. You have to keep investing in that messaging. You have to keep tweaking it to suit the people. You have to ensure you're not speaking above their heads. You have to ensure you're not doing a bullet kind of communication where it's just one way. You must also allow for feedback, and then you hope for the best.
All right, just one or two other issues for me to raise with you before we call it a day. There's this talk around return to the Lagos, the monthly environmental sanitation plan that Lagos had before. What's the current status? We know that there is a court ruling on that.
Now, what is the court ruling? That's the first question. The last judgment from court was from the Court of Appeal Lagos Division, and it overturned the High Court judgments that was against Lagos. So we had a court judgment in our favor. Now, after so many years, and we started making plans to implement or reintroduce the environmental sanitation, the appellant had gone to the Supreme Court, but there is no court order restraining us from doing it. And you see, let us speak fact here. We have an emergency situation in our environment. Introducing the environmental sanitation is to bring back a culture. Sanitation, waste management globally is a culture. You go to a developed clime, you see that your plastic goes into a blue bin, your papers into a black bin, and then your other waste go to the big one. It's a culture you build over time. And we have to build that culture by letting people know that, look, waking up in the morning once a month, staying back between maybe 7 and 9 a.m. to clean your environment, to cut away the waste, and then come and pick them up, is just trying to bring that consciousness into you. And we're at that point where we can't even negotiate it.
So what's the plan for advocacy, for engagement, for communication with the people? Because that, unless that is done, this whole idea is
we are not going to formally start without having massive engagements. We've been doing the engagement since January, February this year. And we still believe we are not there yet.
So how soon is the project likely to?
As soon as governor is satisfied with the plans we put in place.
How soon do you see that happening?
I'm not the governor. But as soon as he's satisfied, that's the operative word. Once he's satisfied that we've ramped up enough advocacy and enlightenment, then he will make the announcement.
Is that likely to happen this year?
I strongly believe we have to.
Okay. Now, there's also this talk about the Olusosun dump site being moved away from Ojota, where it is right now.
Not just Olusosun. We are moving Olusosun and we are moving Solos 3. We are decommissioning them. Let me be appropriate in my choice of words. And why are we decommissioning them? They've served the purpose. Over the decades, we've been used to a linear waste system. You just pick and you dump. That system is not sustainable anywhere in the world. Globally, the best of practices. So you see your waste as a resource. Resource for wealth, resource for energy. Lagos has chosen those two parts. And in the course of that, one of the things we have to do immediately is make Olusosun decommission, put a waste system there that will also help us minimize what now goes to the new site. The same thing will happen to Solos 3. Solos 3 is around Lasso Road and Limosho. Decommission boats. Put the system in place there too. And we've signed the concession agreement. In the next 18 months, we should start seeing the workings.
So where are you moving them to?
Okeosho is one of the places, and one other place Okeosho is around the Ekpe, and one other place around the Kurudu.
Okay. We have to thank you very much for your time this morning. Mr. Tokunbo Wahab is Commissioner for the Environment.
Can I just have a word with Lagosians before I leave? My plea to Lagosians is climate issues are real life issues. Flooding is not a mirage. Lagos is below the sea level. The government will keep doing the best to give you the infrastructure, but you must take ownership of your environment. Don't let anybody take a waste and dump in the drainage system. Don't drop your waste on the median. Patronize our PSP operators. Don't free ride the system. And be rest assured, if there are instead of flash flooding anywhere in the state, there will be flash floodings and we shall attend to them. Have a wonderful celebration for Salah.
Okay, which also speaks to whether or not the local government administrations are doing their own bit, and I trust that you want to speak to that, but we're completely out of time. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Tokunbo Wahab again is the Commissioner for the Environment in Lagos. Well, that's Sunrise Daily this morning. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
Business Morning is coming on top of the hour. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Mokwa Ogun Yusuf.